awkward moments happen all the time at work. Maybe it's a miscommunication or a cultural misunderstanding, but these things can affect how people see you. It can feel even harder to speak up when you're new or worried about your job. No one wants to seem unprofessional by correcting their boss, so you stay quiet, even if it bothers you. Kids don't have this problem. They don't feel awkward the way adults do. They take risks and don't worry about what others think. It makes you realize that feeling awkward is something we learn as we get older. As teenagers, we become more aware of others' opinions and start fearing embarrassment. But maybe if we could tap into that childlike confidence, we'd feel freer and less weighed down by social worries. Chapter 1. The Origins of Awkwardness. Awkwardness is something we've all experienced at one time or another. That creeping discomfort when we've said the wrong thing, misread a social situation, or accidentally violated some unspoken rule. For many, awkward moments can feel like tiny disasters, moments that replay in our heads long after they happen. But where does this feeling come from? Why do we feel so out of place in certain situations, and why does it seem to intensify in adolescence? The answer lies deep within our brains, where significant changes occur during the teenage years. Adolescence is a time of incredible brain development, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, social behavior, and understanding complex emotional signals. This is where our ability to navigate social hierarchies and norms takes shape. Think about how, during childhood, social interactions are often simpler. Kids can run up to strangers, make instant friends, and not give much thought to whether their behavior aligns with what's expected. But as adolescence hits, the brain begins to rewire itself, and suddenly, we're all too aware of the social world around us. We start to notice where we fit within the group, how others perceive us, and whether we're conforming to or standing out from the crowd. This shift in awareness is influenced by hormones like oxytocin and dopamine, which play a crucial role in how we interact socially. Oxytocin, often referred to as the bonding hormone, enhances feelings of connection with others, pushing us to seek out close relationships and approval from our peers. Dopamine, the chemical associated with pleasure and reward, fires off when we receive positive social feedback, making us feel good when we're accepted by others. Together, these hormones create a powerful drive to fit in, to be liked, and to avoid the dreaded feeling of social rejection. It's no wonder, then, that adolescence is often marked by an intense desire to belong. The brain's wiring essentially pushes us to become more aware of social hierarchies and to start conforming to group norms. This desire to fit in isn't just about wanting to be popular or liked, it's an evolutionary trait. Early humans needed to be part of a group to survive. Being accepted meant safety, resources, and protection. On the flip side, being rejected could mean isolation and danger. So, this drive to avoid standing out in a negative way has deep evolutionary roots. But what about that awful, cringe-worthy feeling that comes when we mess up socially? You know the one, the sweaty palms, the racing heart, the sudden urge to disappear. This icky feeling is part of our brain's alarm system, designed to steer us away from making social mistakes that could threaten our standing in the group. Even if we don't live in small tribes anymore, this instinct is still very much alive. When we break social norms, whether it's saying something embarrassing in a meeting or accidentally offending someone at a party, the brain releases stress hormones like cortisol. These chemicals heighten our sense of discomfort and make us hyper-aware of the awkward moment. In our modern world, where social interactions are often rapid and visible to a wider audience thanks to social media, the pressure to avoid these moments has only increased. Social media, in particular, has amplified this feeling. Think about how quickly a mistake can be shared, commented on, and even ridiculed online. The potential for public embarrassment has grown exponentially, and with it, our fear of making a misstep. That photo you wish hadn't been posted, the comment taken out of context, these are the modern equivalents of the early human fear of rejection. Only now, instead of being isolated from a small group, you can feel exposed to an audience of hundreds or thousands, many of whom you may never even meet. The constant connectivity of social media also means we're always on. There's little escape from the social world, and as a result, the pressure to present ourselves in a certain way never really lets up. This can make even minor faux pas feel magnified. A casual joke in a group chat that falls flat or an awkward interaction with a colleague can feel like it holds much more weight than it really does, simply because we're conditioned to avoid anything that might tarnish our image. As we get older, this need for approval doesn't disappear, it just takes different forms. In professional environments, for instance, the drive to fit in and gain approval from peers, colleagues, and superiors can influence everything from how we make decisions to how much risk we're willing to take. Many people are familiar with the experience of staying quiet in a meeting because they're afraid their ideas will be shot down or they'll come across as unprepared. This hesitation often stems from the same place as the awkwardness we experienced in adolescence, the fear of judgment and rejection. In the workplace, this need for approval can even stifle creativity and innovation. Employees might hold back from suggesting new ideas or taking risks because they're worried about how they'll be perceived. This approval-seeking behavior is closely linked to what's known as imposter syndrome, the nagging belief that, no matter how successful or competent you are, you don't really belong, and sooner or later, you'll be found out as a fraud. Imposter syndrome is particularly common among high achievers, and it can be deeply tied to awkwardness. When you feel like you're constantly trying to prove yourself, even the smallest misstep can feel like proof that you don't belong. You might overanalyze a conversation with your boss or obsess over a minor mistake in a report, convinced that these moments are evidence of your inadequacy. The need for validation becomes a constant undercurrent, driving your actions and decisions in ways that can feel exhausting. The pressure to gain approval can also impact how we interact with authority figures. Many employees are hesitant to challenge or correct their superiors, even when they know something isn't right, out of fear of damaging their professional relationships or coming across as disrespectful. This can lead to a workplace culture where awkwardness is allowed to fester, and minor issues are left unaddressed because no one wants to rock the boat. Interestingly, children don't seem to struggle with this the way adults do. They're much more likely to say what's on their minds, make social mistakes, and move on without giving it a second thought. There's a sense of freedom in their interactions. They're not constantly worried about whether they're being judged or if they're saying the right thing. This suggests that awkwardness, and the fear of social rejection that comes with it, is something we learn as we grow older. During adolescence, when the brain starts to prioritize social approval and fitting in, we become much more sensitive to the judgments of others. But what if we could tap into that childlike confidence as adults? What if we could unlearn some of the awkwardness that holds us back and embrace the possibility of making mistakes without fear of rejection? It's not an easy shift to make, especially in a world where social norms and expectations are constantly reinforced. But by understanding the origins of awkwardness, the way our brains are wired to avoid rejection, the influence of hormones like oxytocin and dopamine, and the role of evolutionary psychology, we can start to see these moments of discomfort for what they really are, natural, human experiences that don't define us. In fact, embracing awkwardness can lead to deeper, more genuine connections with others. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to admit our mistakes, and to laugh at our own missteps, we open the door to authenticity. People are often drawn to those who aren't afraid to be themselves, flaws and all. After all, we all experience awkwardness, it's a universal part of being human. By accepting it, we can start to break free from the fear of judgment and live more confidently, both socially and professionally. Chapter 2. The Role of Approval Mindset at Work. In the workplace, conformity to norms often feels like the safest route for employees. Whether consciously or subconsciously, many people quickly adapt to the culture of their office, molding their behavior, language, and even ideas to fit in. This is a natural survival tactic in environments where the stakes are high. However, while conformity may offer a sense of security, it can also discourage employees from taking risks, both professionally and personally. And as people climb higher in the corporate hierarchy, the risks of deviating from the norm seem to increase, leaving innovation and creativity often stifled in favor of playing it safe. Imagine an employee who has a bold new idea. It's something they're excited about, something that could potentially improve productivity or streamline processes in their department. but the office culture they work in prioritizes consistency and sticking to what's known. They've witnessed other colleagues suggest new ideas before, only to be met with resistance or, worse, subtle ridicule for proposing something outside the accepted way of doing things. So, they keep the idea to themselves. Over time, they learn that challenging the status quo isn't worth the discomfort that might follow. This is how conformity breeds a work culture that discourages innovation. Corporate culture, in many cases, is designed to prioritize stability over disruption. And understandably so, businesses need predictability to function smoothly. But this emphasis on stability can create an environment where employees are afraid to take any professional risks. Risk-taking, after all, is inherently tied to the possibility of failure, and in many workplace cultures, failure is not viewed as a learning opportunity but as a mistake that could damage one's professional standing. Over time, this mindset leads to stagnation, where innovation is stifled because the fear of failing, or of upsetting the established order, becomes greater than the desire to improve or experiment. As employees move up the corporate ladder, this risk aversion tends to increase. The stakes get higher as their responsibilities grow. A mistake that might have been a small blip early in their career could now have significant repercussions, not only for themselves but for their team or even the company as a whole. Senior employees are often more focused on preserving their reputations and maintaining the trust they've built with colleagues and superiors, which can make them even more hesitant to take risks. The irony here is that those in leadership roles, who are in the best position to foster innovation, are often the most risk-averse. Yet, the need to conform to workplace norms isn't just about avoiding professional risks. It's deeply tied to how we see ourselves and how we think others see us. Social psychologist Irving Goffman introduced the concept of the presentation of self, which explains how individuals curate their identities to fit into external expectations. In the workplace, this often means that employees put on a kind of performance, presenting themselves in a way that aligns with the company's culture and values, even if it doesn't fully reflect who they are or what they think. For example, an employee may present themselves as confident and in control during meetings, even though they feel anxious and unsure inside. They might choose their words carefully, always opting for what they think their boss wants to hear rather than what they truly believe. Over time, this gap between external perception and internal reality can become exhausting. Constantly curating an image that doesn't align with how you actually feel can lead to emotional exhaustion, anxiety, and a diminished sense of authenticity. This phenomenon becomes even more pronounced in today's world, where social media plays a huge role in shaping how we present ourselves. On platforms like LinkedIn, employees are encouraged to maintain a polished, professional image, showcasing their achievements, sharing industry insights, and appearing constantly on top of their game. But behind the carefully curated profiles, many individuals are struggling with self-doubt, insecurity, and the pressure to always be on. The disconnect between how we present ourselves online and how we feel in real life only deepens the emotional toll of living up to external expectations. This brings us to the concept of loss aversion, a psychological principle that suggests people are more motivated by the fear of losing something than by the potential to gain something. In the workplace, loss aversion often manifests in employees avoiding risks to avoid social or professional discomfort. People fear losing the approval of their peers or superiors more than they value the potential gain of taking a creative or professional risk. This fear of disapproval can lead employees to stay silent in meetings, hold back ideas, or avoid taking on challenging projects, all in the name of avoiding potential failure or rejection. Take, for instance, a new employee in a corporate setting. They've been hired for their fresh perspective and unique approach to problem solving. But once they enter the office environment, they quickly realize that the culture values conformity over creativity. They're surrounded by colleagues who have been with the company for years and have established ways of doing things. The new employee, eager to fit in and gain approval, starts to mirror the behavior of their coworkers. They hold back their original ideas in favor of blending in. Over time, they lose the spark that got them hired in the first place, all because the fear of social discomfort outweighed the potential benefits of bringing something new to the table. The good news is that some companies are beginning to recognize the need to create environments where employees feel safe to take risks. They understand that innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum, and that failure is often a necessary step on the path to success. One way to encourage risk-taking is by fostering a culture of psychological safety, where employees feel confident that they can share ideas, ask questions, and even make mistakes without fear of being ridiculed or punished. When employees know that failure is part of the learning process, they're more likely to take risks that lead to innovation. Google, for example, has implemented practices that encourage risk-taking, such as their famous 20% time policy, where employees are encouraged to spend 20% of their work hours on passion projects or innovative ideas outside their regular duties. This approach has led to the creation of some of Google's most successful products, including Gmail and Google Maps. By creating a culture where employees are encouraged to experiment and fail, Google has fostered an environment that values creativity and innovation over rigid conformity. However, it's important to acknowledge that while the approval mindset can hold people back, it also has its benefits. For many individuals, the desire for external validation drives them to set high standards for themselves and to work hard to achieve their goals. Striving for approval can push people to refine their skills, perfect their craft, and put in the extra effort to excel in their roles. In some professions, especially those that are client-facing, such as sales or consulting, the pursuit of external approval is not only encouraged but essential for success. Consider a salesperson whose job relies on securing deals and building relationships with clients. For them, winning the approval of their clients is critical to their success. They tailor their pitch to meet the client's needs, anticipate objections, and present solutions in a way that resonates with the client's goals. The desire to win approval drives them to be persuasive, adaptive, and, ultimately, successful. In this case, the approval mindset isn't holding them back, it's pushing them to achieve excellence in their role. Similarly, in professions where reputation is everything, such as law or public relations, the approval mindset can drive individuals to maintain a high level of professionalism and attention to detail. These professionals know that their success is built on how others perceive them, and they work diligently to ensure they are seen as competent, reliable, and trustworthy. In these cases, the approval mindset serves as a motivator that leads to better performance and success. Of course, the key to benefiting from the approval mindset lies in finding a balance. While external validation can be a powerful motivator, it's important that individuals don't lose sight of their own values and authenticity in the process. When the pursuit of approval becomes all-consuming, it can lead to burnout, anxiety, and a loss of connection with one's true self. But when approached with balance, the approval mindset can be a tool that pushes individuals to strive for excellence while still maintaining their sense of integrity and authenticity. The approval mindset plays a complex role in the workplace. On one hand, it can stifle creativity and discourage risk-taking by encouraging conformity and fear of failure. On the other hand, it can drive individuals to work harder, refine their skills, and achieve great things in their professional lives. The challenge lies in navigating this balance, knowing when to seek approval and when to embrace authenticity, when to take risks and when to play it safe. By fostering a workplace culture that values both risk-taking and excellence, companies can unlock the full potential of their employees and create an environment where innovation and success go hand in hand. If you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Your subscription helps us keep creating content with love and dedication. Chapter 3. Crossing the Cringe Chasm. We've all been there, standing in the middle of a social situation where everything suddenly feels off. Maybe it's that awkward silence after you've said something that didn't land, or perhaps it's the realization that you misread the room entirely. That sinking feeling in your chest, the flush creeping up your neck, the sudden urge to vanish, it's the cringe chasm. This chasm is that space we fall into when we experience social discomfort, vulnerability, or embarrassment. It's a universal experience. But why does it feel so awful? Why do these moments linger in our minds, replaying long after they've happened? The answer lies in the brain's response to perceived social threats. When we experience an awkward moment, our brains react as if we're facing an actual physical danger. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing fear and threat, activates, flooding our body with stress hormones like cortisol. This reaction is rooted in our evolutionary past. Early humans depended on their social groups for survival, so being socially accepted was crucial. Any behavior that threatened one's place in the group could have dire consequences, like exclusion or even death. While the stakes of social awkwardness are much lower today, our brains still respond as if these moments of vulnerability could jeopardize our safety. That's why cringe moments feel so uncomfortable, they trigger our fight or flight response. The brain perceives awkwardness as a threat to our social standing, and we feel it physically. The flushed cheeks, the racing heart, the urge to escape, it's all our brain's way of trying to protect us from social harm. But instead of running from a predator, we're running from embarrassment. What makes the cringe chasm even more challenging to navigate is that it often forces us to confront a difficult choice. Do we maintain external approval, or do we stay true to our authentic selves? This internal conflict is at the heart of many awkward moments. On one hand, we want to be liked and accepted by others. On the other hand, we don't want to sacrifice who we are just to fit in. This tension between approval and authenticity is something that nearly everyone grapples with at some point. Maslow's hierarchy of needs places self-actualization, the process of realizing and fulfilling our true potential, at the top of human motivation. But before we can reach self-actualization, we often feel compelled to meet lower-level needs, such as the need for love, belonging, and approval from others. This can create a conflict. To grow and be authentic, we may have to take risks that challenge our social standing, but the fear of losing approval can hold us back. Take the example of a young professional starting their career in a highly competitive corporate environment. Early on, they might feel the need to conform to the expectations of their peers and superiors. They follow the unwritten rules of the office, attend networking events, and do their best to fit in. But deep down, they know that they have ideas and values that don't always align with the company culture. Maybe they believe in a more collaborative and less hierarchical approach to leadership, but the company values rigid structures and top-down decision-making. The young professional faces a dilemma. Do they speak up and risk being seen as rebellious or difficult, or do they stay quiet and maintain the approval of their colleagues? The pressure to conform can feel overwhelming, and the fear of falling into the cringe chasm, of saying or doing something that will make them stand out in an uncomfortable way, can be paralyzing. But for some, the desire to stay true to themselves outweighs the need for external approval. These are the people who take the risk, who choose authenticity over conformity, even when it means facing awkwardness or discomfort. Case studies of individuals who have taken this path show that the results can be mixed. Some find success, thriving in environments where their unique perspectives and willingness to challenge the status quo are valued. Others face setbacks, struggling to find a balance between authenticity and the need for social acceptance. Consider the story of a woman who worked in a corporate setting but had a passion for sustainability and environmentalism. She often felt out of place at work, where discussions revolved around profit margins and shareholder value. Eventually, she decided to speak up, advocating for the company to adopt more sustainable practices. At first, her ideas were met with resistance, some colleagues even laughed them off. But over time, her persistence paid off. The company eventually embraced her proposals, and she became a respected leader in her field. On the other hand, there are stories of people who have taken similar risks only to be met with failure. A man working in the tech industry decided to push for more diversity in hiring practices at his company, even though it wasn't a priority for his team. His efforts were seen as disruptive, and he was sidelined from key projects. While he stayed true to his values, the cost was significant. These examples highlight the reality that choosing authenticity over approval doesn't always lead to immediate success, but it can bring long-term fulfillment for those willing to take the risk. Taking risks for personal growth is an essential part of crossing the cringe chasm. Behavioral psychology offers valuable insights into how we can confront awkwardness and discomfort in ways that foster resilience. One of the most effective strategies is exposure therapy, a psychological technique where individuals are gradually exposed to the situations or stimuli that cause them anxiety or fear. By repeatedly facing uncomfortable situations, people can desensitize themselves to the negative emotions associated with them. Think of exposure therapy as a way to build tolerance to awkwardness. The more you confront situations that make you cringe, whether it's speaking up in a meeting, sharing an unpopular opinion, or putting yourself out there socially, the less power those situations have over you. It's not that the awkwardness goes away entirely, but your ability to cope with it improves. Consider a person who has always been uncomfortable with public speaking. The mere thought of standing in front of a room full of people, with all eyes on them, triggers that familiar cringe response, sweaty palms, racing heart, and the overwhelming desire to disappear. But instead of avoiding public speaking altogether, they decide to face their fear head-on. They start small, maybe by giving a brief presentation to a small group of coworkers. The first few times are nerve-wracking, and the cringe chasm feels deep. But with each experience, the discomfort lessens. Eventually, they build enough confidence to speak in front of larger audiences without the same intense feelings of awkwardness. This process of facing discomfort in small, manageable doses allows people to grow and become more resilient. Over time, the fear of awkwardness diminishes, and what once felt unbearable becomes just another part of life. It's not about eliminating awkward moments entirely, because they will always happen, but about building the emotional strength to navigate them without letting them define you. Crossing the cringe chasm is also about learning to embrace vulnerability. There's a certain strength that comes from allowing yourself to be vulnerable, from acknowledging that you don't have all the answers or that you might make mistakes. In fact, vulnerability often leads to deeper connections with others. When you allow yourself to be open and honest, even in awkward or uncomfortable situations, you invite others to do the same. It creates a space for authenticity and growth that wouldn't exist if everyone was too busy trying to maintain a perfect image. Take, for instance, a leader who admits to their team that they made a mistake. This moment of vulnerability might feel awkward, but it can also build trust and respect within the team. By showing that they're human, that they're not afraid to be honest even when it's uncomfortable, the leader sets an example for others to follow. It's a reminder that growth often requires us to step outside of our comfort zones and face the things that make us cringe. Ultimately, the cringe chasm represents more than just social awkwardness, it's a metaphor for the discomfort we all face when we take risks, confront vulnerability, and choose authenticity over approval. It's the space we fall into when we push against the boundaries of what's comfortable and familiar. But it's also the space where growth happens. By learning to navigate the cringe chasm, we become more resilient, more authentic, and more capable of facing the challenges that come with personal and professional growth. The cringe chasm isn't something to be feared, it's something to be embraced. It's a necessary part of the journey towards self-actualization, where the discomfort of awkwardness gives way to the confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life throws your way. Chapter 4. The Improvement Mindset. Shifting from an approval mindset to an improvement mindset can be one of the most profound changes in how we approach life. The approval mindset is something we've all experienced. It's that need to impress others, to be recognized, to feel validated by external praise. Many people operate in this space without realizing it. Whether it's performing well at work to get a promotion or posting an achievement on social media to collect likes, the desire for approval shapes much of our behavior. But while approval can offer temporary satisfaction, it rarely leads to deeper fulfillment. That's where the improvement mindset comes in, a focus not on how others see us but on how we can grow for ourselves, aiming for personal growth and self-fulfillment as the ultimate goals. Developing an improvement mindset means shifting away from relying on external validation and moving toward intrinsic motivation, where the drive to achieve comes from within. The benefits of intrinsic motivation are well documented. When people are motivated by personal growth, the process itself becomes more enjoyable. They aren't just looking for the next gold star, they are engaged in the act of improvement for its own sake. This leads to greater persistence, creativity, and overall satisfaction. Imagine you're learning a new skill. Let's say you decide to learn to play the guitar. If your primary goal is to impress your friends at parties, your motivation will likely falter if you don't see progress quickly. You'll feel frustrated when things get hard, and every small mistake might feel like a setback. But if you approach learning guitar with an improvement mindset, the process becomes more enjoyable. Each practice session is an opportunity to get better, even if it's just a small improvement. You start appreciating the learning process itself, the way your fingers get stronger, the way you start understanding rhythm, the satisfaction of mastering a difficult chord. The motivation comes from the act of learning and growing, not from the idea of performing for others. This shift in mindset is liberating. It takes the pressure off needing to constantly prove something and instead allows you to focus on your own journey. You start setting goals that are meaningful to you, not just ones that will earn you praise or recognition. And that's where goal setting becomes a crucial part of developing an improvement mindset. When you set goals based on your own values and desires, they become a roadmap for personal growth. You can track your progress and reflect on how far you've come, which reinforces the feeling of accomplishment, not because someone else approves, but because you know you've done something meaningful for yourself. For example, consider an artist who paints because they love the process of creating. They set goals to improve their technique, experiment with new styles, or express emotions through their work. Their satisfaction comes from the act of creation, not from the number of likes their paintings get on Instagram. This doesn't mean that external recognition isn't appreciated. It can still be gratifying to have your work recognized by others, but it's not the primary motivator. The artist's main driver is the internal satisfaction of knowing they're growing, learning, and pushing themselves to new heights. That's the essence of the improvement mindset. To cultivate this mindset, self-reflection is key. Taking time to pause, reflect on your progress, and assess what truly matters to you helps reinforce intrinsic motivation. This could be as simple as journaling about your experiences, setting aside moments to think about your long-term goals, or asking yourself deeper questions about what you want out of life. When you engage in self-reflection, you create a space where your internal motivations can shine through, and you can begin to disconnect from the need for constant external approval. The psychological benefits of intrinsic motivation are supported by numerous studies. One of the most well-known theories on this topic is self-determination theory, developed by psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. According to this theory, people are most motivated when they feel a sense of autonomy, mastery, and purpose in their actions. Let's break that down. Autonomy is about having the freedom to make choices that align with your personal values. When you feel in control of your actions and decisions, your motivation becomes more internal. Think about how much more energized and driven you feel when working on a project you chose versus one that was assigned to you. That feeling of ownership fosters intrinsic motivation because you're doing something you truly care about, not just fulfilling someone else's expectations. Mastery is the pursuit of becoming better at something that matters to you. This doesn't mean achieving perfection but rather the process of continuous improvement. Whether it's mastering a new skill, improving in your career, or growing as a person, the desire to become better is a powerful intrinsic motivator. The key here is that mastery is a never-ending process. There's always room to grow, and it's this pursuit of growth that keeps people engaged and motivated. Purpose is the sense that what you're doing has meaning beyond just your immediate gratification. It's about feeling connected to a bigger goal or mission, something that resonates with your values. For example, someone who works in healthcare might be motivated not just by a paycheck but by the sense of purpose that comes from helping others. The work feels meaningful because it aligns with their internal values of compassion and service. This sense of purpose drives them to keep improving, not for external praise, but because they feel connected to something larger than themselves. Studies have shown that people who are motivated by these internal factors, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, are more likely to achieve long-term success. They are more persistent, more resilient in the face of challenges, and more likely to feel satisfied with their lives. In contrast, people who are primarily motivated by external rewards, such as approval, recognition, or material gains, tend to experience more anxiety, burnout, and dissatisfaction over time. External rewards are fleeting, they provide a temporary boost but don't sustain long-term motivation the way internal goals do. One famous study conducted by Deci and Ryan demonstrated the negative effects of external rewards on motivation. In the study, participants were asked to work on a puzzle. Some were offered money for completing the puzzle, while others were not. The researchers found that those who were paid to complete the puzzle lost interest in the task once the money was no longer offered. In contrast, those who were not paid remained engaged and continued working on the puzzle simply because they enjoyed the challenge. The external reward of money had actually diminished the participants' intrinsic motivation to engage in the task for its own sake. This study, along with many others, highlights the importance of fostering internal motivation. When people are motivated by something deeper than external approval, they become more engaged, more creative, and more resilient. They're not just working for a reward, they're working for their own growth and satisfaction. This is why the improvement mindset is so powerful. It shifts the focus from what others think to what truly matters to you. Take the example of an entrepreneur who starts a business out of a passion for solving a particular problem. They're motivated by the challenge of building something new, of learning along the way, and of making an impact in their field. Of course, external rewards like financial success and recognition are nice, but they're not the driving force behind the entrepreneur's actions. The true motivation comes from within, the desire to create, to innovate, and to improve. This internal drive is what sustains them through the inevitable setbacks and challenges that come with starting a business. In contrast, an entrepreneur who starts a business solely for the purpose of making money or gaining approval might find themselves losing motivation when things get tough. If the external rewards aren't coming as quickly as expected, they might feel discouraged or disillusioned. Their motivation falters because it was never rooted in something deeper. This is why internal motivation is so important for long-term success. When you're driven by an improvement mindset, the ups and downs of life don't derail you, you stay focused on your personal growth and the satisfaction that comes from knowing you're working towards something meaningful. Fostering an improvement mindset doesn't happen overnight, but it's a shift that can lead to profound changes in how you approach life. By focusing on intrinsic motivation, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, you create a foundation for personal growth that's independent of external validation. You begin to set goals that align with your values, and you take ownership of your own journey. The improvement mindset is about recognizing that the most important validation comes from within, not from the approval of others. And when you embrace that, you unlock the potential for a life driven by growth, fulfillment, and true success. Chapter 5. Training for Discomfort. Training yourself to deal with discomfort is a skill that can completely transform how you approach life. Imagine how much more freedom you'd feel if awkward moments didn't fill you with dread. What if you could embrace those unsettling feelings rather than avoid them? That's the essence of deliberate discomfort, a practice where you intentionally put yourself in situations that make you feel uneasy, not as a form of punishment, but as a way to grow. It's like strength training for the mind, gradually building resilience so that you can handle bigger challenges without breaking down. The more you do it, the stronger you get. Deliberate discomfort isn't about putting yourself in harm's way. It's not about throwing yourself into situations where the stakes are too high or the risks too severe. Rather, it's about identifying small, manageable moments of discomfort that you can face regularly to build your mental muscles. These could be as simple as speaking up in a meeting when you'd normally stay quiet, volunteering for a task that's a little outside your comfort zone, or having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. For example, think about the scenario where you're in a team meeting and the conversation is dominated by more senior or outspoken colleagues. You might have a great idea to contribute, but the thought of interrupting or asserting yourself feels intimidating. Deliberate discomfort in this context would mean choosing to speak up anyway, even if your voice shakes or your palms sweat. The goal isn't perfection, it's getting used to the feeling of discomfort and realizing that you can survive it. Every time you push through these moments, your brain learns that awkwardness and discomfort aren't threats. In fact, they're part of the process of growth. What feels unbearable at first becomes more manageable over time, much like how lifting a small weight gets easier the more you train with it. The act of stepping into discomfort, over and over again, desensitizes you to the fear that usually accompanies these situations. This kind of practice can have a ripple effect in other areas of life as well. When you train yourself to feel okay with discomfort in smaller, controlled situations, you begin to develop the confidence to take on bigger risks in your personal and professional life. It's the same logic that applies to athletes who undergo rigorous training. No one runs a marathon without first building up their endurance with smaller, shorter runs. Similarly, you don't take a huge life-changing risk without first developing the mental endurance through smaller moments of discomfort. One of the key benefits of deliberate discomfort is that it shifts your relationship with fear. Often, fear is what holds us back, not the situation itself, but the anticipation of what could go wrong. We play out worst-case scenarios in our heads, imagining all the ways we could fail or embarrass ourselves, and as a result, we avoid stepping into situations that could actually help us grow. By practicing deliberate discomfort, you start to see that fear is often just a phantom, a shadow that disappears when you shine a light on it. Take public speaking as an example. Many people rank it as one of their top fears, but the fear is rarely about the act of speaking itself. It's about the fear of messing up, of being judged, of not being good enough. When you practice deliberate discomfort, you might start by speaking in front of a small group of friends, then work your way up to larger audiences. Each time, you'll feel that rush of awkwardness and discomfort, but each time, you'll also see that you survived it. Over time, the fear loses its grip, and you become more confident in your ability to handle situations that once felt impossible. But building this kind of resilience doesn't happen overnight. Just like physical strength requires regular training, mental resilience needs consistent effort. You can't go to the gym once and expect to be strong for life, and the same is true for dealing with discomfort. It's something that requires practice, and fortunately, there are many tools to help you along the way. One of the most effective techniques for managing discomfort is visualization. Athletes, performers, and even business leaders use visualization to mentally rehearse challenging situations before they happen. By picturing yourself successfully navigating a difficult conversation or handling an awkward moment with grace, you create a mental roadmap for how to deal with it in real life. The brain doesn't fully differentiate between imagined and real experiences, so when you visualize success, you're training your brain to expect success when the real moment arrives. Imagine you're about to present a new idea to your boss, and you're feeling nervous about how it will be received. Before the meeting, you take a few minutes to close your eyes and picture the scenario. You imagine walking into the room with confidence, explaining your idea clearly, and answering any questions that come up. You visualize your boss nodding, giving positive feedback, and engaging with your idea. By the time the meeting happens, you've already mentally practiced the situation, which reduces the fear and uncertainty that often lead to discomfort. Mindfulness is another powerful tool for managing discomfort. Mindfulness teaches us to stay present in the moment, rather than getting caught up in thoughts about how awkward or uncomfortable we might feel. When we experience discomfort, it's natural to want to escape it, to distract ourselves or avoid the situation entirely. But mindfulness encourages us to sit with the discomfort, to observe it without judgment, and to recognize that it's just a passing sensation. For example, during a difficult conversation, you might start to feel a wave of awkwardness. Instead of letting that feeling overwhelm you, mindfulness allows you to take a step back mentally. You acknowledge the sensation, but you don't let it control your behavior. You stay focused on the conversation, breathing deeply, and remaining present. Over time, this practice of staying with discomfort rather than fleeing from it makes you more resilient. Cognitive reframing is another valuable technique for handling awkward or uncomfortable situations. This involves changing the way you think about the situation, shifting from a negative perspective to a more positive or constructive one. Often, our discomfort comes from how we interpret a situation, rather than the situation itself. For instance, if you're nervous about speaking up in a meeting, you might be telling yourself, if I say something wrong, everyone will think I'm incompetent. Cognitive reframing would involve challenging that thought, asking yourself, is that really true? Or is this just a fear-based assumption? You might reframe the situation as an opportunity. If I speak up, I'll have a chance to contribute, and even if I make a mistake, it's a learning experience. Reframing discomfort as a positive or neutral experience allows you to approach challenging situations with less fear and more curiosity. Instead of viewing awkward moments as failures, you start to see them as opportunities for growth. It's a subtle but powerful shift that can change how you approach everything from professional challenges to personal interactions. Deliberate discomfort and these techniques, visualization, mindfulness, and cognitive reframing, are all part of what it means to exercise the improvement mindset muscles. It's about recognizing that growth doesn't come from staying comfortable. Just as you wouldn't expect to build physical strength without some degree of challenge, you can't build mental resilience without stepping into discomfort. Think about the people you admire, whether in your personal life or in the public sphere. Chances are, they didn't get to where they are by avoiding discomfort. They took risks, faced awkward situations, and put themselves in challenging positions. They practiced stepping into the unknown, and that's how they grew stronger. The improvement mindset is about embracing that process, not shying away from the things that make us uncomfortable, but recognizing that they are essential to our growth. Consider the story of a woman who started her career as a junior analyst in a highly competitive industry. At first, she stayed in the background, afraid to speak up in meetings or challenge the more experienced members of her team. But she realized that if she wanted to grow, she would need to get comfortable with discomfort. So, she started practicing deliberate discomfort. She made a point of contributing at least one idea in every meeting, even when it felt terrifying. She asked for feedback after presentations, even if it meant hearing criticism. She volunteered for projects that stretched her skills and put her in unfamiliar situations. Over time, the discomfort didn't disappear, but she became more resilient. And as her resilience grew, so did her confidence, her skills, and eventually, her career. This is the power of training for discomfort. It's not about erasing fear or awkwardness, it's about building the strength to face those feelings and keep going. The more you practice, the more you realize that discomfort isn't something to be feared, it's a sign that you're growing. And as you continue to exercise those improvement mindset muscles, you'll find that the challenges that once seemed overwhelming become stepping stones on your path to personal and professional growth. Chapter 6. The impact of an improvement mindset. The journey from an approval mindset to an improvement mindset is one that requires a significant shift in thinking. The approval mindset focuses on external validation, meeting goals to gain praise, adapting behaviors to fit expectations, and striving to avoid mistakes for fear of judgment. It's an approach that can drive success in the short term, especially in environments where hitting targets or receiving recognition is critical. But over time, many people find that living for external approval leads to burnout, a lack of fulfillment, and a disconnection from their true desires and values. This is where the improvement mindset offers a healthier, more sustainable path. The good news is that the skills honed during years spent chasing approval, goal setting, feedback adaptation, and perseverance don't go to waste. In fact, they become powerful tools for personal growth when applied with an improvement mindset. The key is learning how to repurpose these skills, shifting from focusing on what others expect of you to aligning your actions with your internal values. Take goal setting, for example. In an approval mindset, goals are often set based on external rewards, earning a promotion, impressing a supervisor, or achieving a milestone that garners recognition. The goals themselves may be valuable, but the motivation behind them is rooted in others' expectations. In contrast, when you adopt an improvement mindset, you still set goals, but they're driven by a desire for personal growth and fulfillment. Instead of thinking, "What can I achieve that will make others proud?" you start asking, "What can I do that will make me proud? How can I grow in ways that are meaningful to me?" A marketing professional, for instance, might initially focus on hitting sales targets or increasing brand awareness because those metrics are what the company values. However, as they shift toward an improvement mindset, they might redefine success based on personal growth. Perhaps they set a goal to develop new skills in digital marketing, not just because it will impress their boss, but because they're genuinely interested in the field and want to expand their expertise. They're still achieving externally measurable goals, but the internal motivation transforms the experience. Instead of feeling like they're constantly performing for approval, they feel empowered to pursue goals that align with their passions and long-term growth. Feedback, another key skill cultivated in an approval mindset, also plays a crucial role in the improvement mindset. In the approval-driven world, feedback can feel like a tool for judgment, a way of determining whether you've succeeded or failed in the eyes of others. It can be intimidating and stressful, especially if you feel your value is tied to the opinions of those around you. But with an improvement mindset, feedback becomes less about validation and more about learning. It's not a measure of your worth, but a source of information that helps you grow. Consider a graphic designer who presents their work to a client and receives feedback that the design doesn't meet the client's vision. In an approval mindset, this feedback might feel devastating. It's a rejection of their talent, a blow to their confidence. But with an improvement mindset, the same feedback can be reframed as an opportunity to learn. The designer recognizes that the feedback isn't a reflection of their ability but rather a chance to understand the client's preferences more deeply and refine their skills. This shift in perspective reduces the fear associated with feedback, making it a valuable tool for continuous growth rather than a source of anxiety. Organizations that encourage this kind of mindset shift can foster environments where both personal and professional growth flourish. When companies focus solely on external achievements, like meeting quotas, boosting profits, or climbing the corporate ladder, they may unintentionally promote an approval mindset among their employees. This can lead to a culture of competition, fear of failure, and burnout. However, when organizations emphasize personal development alongside professional success, they create a space where employees can pursue growth in meaningful ways, driving long-term engagement and innovation. For example, some companies now integrate personal growth goals into their performance reviews, encouraging employees to focus not just on job-related achievements but also on areas of personal interest or skill development. An employee might set a goal to learn a new language, take a leadership course, or work on a project outside their usual role, projects that align with their passions or areas they want to explore. This approach acknowledges that when individuals grow personally, they bring more creativity, resilience, and motivation to their work. By fostering an improvement mindset, companies can tap into the full potential of their employees, creating a culture where both the individual and the organization thrive. Another important aspect of the improvement mindset is learning to embrace awkwardness. Awkwardness often signals discomfort, uncertainty, or vulnerability, all things we instinctively try to avoid. But in reality, awkward moments are the gateways to growth. They push us out of our comfort zones and force us to confront new challenges. Rather than viewing awkwardness as something to shy away from, we can begin to see it as a necessary and valuable part of the learning process. Take, for example, the story of a young entrepreneur who had to pitch her business idea to a room full of seasoned investors. She was nervous, her voice trembled, she stumbled over a few words, and she could feel the awkward tension in the room. But she didn't let the discomfort stop her. She acknowledged her nervousness, pushed through the awkwardness, and delivered her pitch with passion. While the presentation wasn't perfect, the investors were impressed with her determination and authenticity. That moment of awkwardness became a stepping stone, leading to valuable connections and eventual success. Had she shied away from the discomfort, she might never have had the chance to grow. The lesson here is that awkwardness is often a sign that we're doing something new, something that stretches us beyond our current capabilities. It's uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar, but that discomfort is where the magic happens. Think about the first time you tried anything, whether it was learning to ride a bike, giving a presentation, or starting a new job. It probably felt awkward at first. But as you practiced, grew more confident, and gained experience, the awkwardness faded, and in its place, you found competence, confidence, and mastery. Embracing awkwardness means accepting that growth isn't always smooth or graceful. It's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes embarrassing. But those moments of discomfort are where the most profound learning occurs. The more we embrace these moments, the more resilient we become, and the less power awkwardness has over us. Many successful individuals have openly discussed how awkward or uncomfortable experiences were crucial to their growth. Take Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, who admitted that early in her career, she often felt out of place in male-dominated meetings. She had moments of awkwardness where she doubted herself, worried about how she was perceived, and struggled to find her voice. But instead of retreating into silence or avoiding those moments, she embraced the discomfort. She learned to speak up, even when her voice was shaky, and over time, those awkward moments became the foundation of her leadership style. Today, she is known for her ability to lead with confidence, but it was through navigating those early moments of awkwardness that she built that confidence. Another example is Elon Musk, who has often been described as awkward or uncomfortable in public speaking situations. Early in his career, Musk struggled with public presentations, often coming across as stiff or overly technical. But rather than avoiding the spotlight, he kept putting himself in front of audiences, refining his style and learning from each experience. Today, while he may not be the most polished public speaker, his authenticity and passion resonate with people because he's willing to embrace the awkwardness and focus on sharing his vision. In both Sandberg and Musk's cases, the willingness to push through uncomfortable moments led to tremendous growth and success. This mindset of embracing awkwardness can be applied to all areas of life. Whether it's a conversation with a coworker about a difficult topic, stepping into a leadership role for the first time, or taking on a new project that feels daunting, the ability to accept and even welcome discomfort is a crucial part of personal development. When we stop avoiding awkward moments and start seeing them as opportunities, we unlock a whole new level of growth potential. Crossing the gap from an approval mindset to an improvement mindset requires a willingness to embrace discomfort, awkwardness, and the inevitable bumps along the way. It's about repurposing the skills you've already developed, goal setting, adapting to feedback, and persistence, toward internal growth rather than external validation. It's about aligning your achievements with your values and pursuing personal growth in ways that feel meaningful to you. And most importantly, it's about recognizing that the path to growth is rarely smooth, but it's always worth it. When you embrace the awkward moments and step into the unknown, you open yourself up to a world of possibilities that go far beyond seeking approval. You discover the power of true, lasting growth. Choosing to improve is not about avoiding mistakes, awkward moments, or discomfort, it's about embracing them. Growth, whether personal or professional, often requires us to step into spaces that feel uncomfortable, to make decisions that challenge us, and to take risks that might expose our vulnerabilities. At the heart of this process is the idea that awkward moments are not obstacles but opportunities. They are signals that we are pushing past what is familiar and safe, into the territory where real learning happens. Most of us have an instinct to avoid awkwardness. That feeling of discomfort that comes when we say the wrong thing, misread a situation, or fail to meet expectations can be deeply unsettling. The fear of embarrassment or rejection leads many people to stick to what they know and avoid situations where they might stumble. But the truth is, avoiding awkwardness means missing out on the most valuable learning experiences. Those moments where we feel exposed or uncertain are often the very moments that drive us to grow. Take, for example, the experience of starting a new job. The first few weeks are almost guaranteed to be filled with awkward moments, learning how to navigate office politics, figuring out who to ask for help, or getting used to the quirks of a new team. It's easy to feel out of place or worried that you're not making the right impression. But those awkward moments are part of the adjustment process. They force you to learn quickly, to adapt to new environments, and to develop the resilience needed to thrive in your new role. Without that initial discomfort, you wouldn't grow into the position. In fact, it's often in the aftermath of those awkward moments, when you reflect on what went wrong and how you can do better, that real progress happens. The idea here is that discomfort is often a sign of progress. It means you're stretching yourself, stepping outside your comfort zone, and facing challenges that push you to become better. When we avoid discomfort, we stay stagnant. We repeat the same patterns, avoid taking risks, and prevent ourselves from reaching our full potential. But when we face discomfort head-on, we learn, we grow, and we become more resilient. One way to shift your mindset about awkward moments is to actively identify them and view them as opportunities for growth. Let's say you're in a meeting and you've been hesitant to share your ideas because you're not sure how they'll be received. That hesitation is rooted in a fear of awkwardness, of putting yourself out there and facing potential rejection. But instead of avoiding the discomfort, recognize that the awkwardness of that moment is where growth can happen. If you share your idea and it doesn't go as planned, you've learned something valuable. Maybe you'll need to refine how you present your ideas, or perhaps the feedback you receive will help you develop your thoughts further. Either way, you've gained something from the experience. On the other hand, if you never speak up, you lose the opportunity to grow, to refine your ideas, and to gain confidence in your voice. This approach can be applied to almost any situation. Whether it's navigating a difficult conversation with a friend, taking on a leadership role for the first time, or stepping into a new and unfamiliar environment, the moments that feel most awkward are often the ones that offer the most potential for growth. It's about changing your perspective from seeing awkwardness as something to be avoided, to seeing it as a natural part of the learning process. Of course, not all discomfort is equal, and not all awkward moments are worth pursuing. The key is to find goals that make the discomfort worthwhile. When you align your actions with your internal values and long-term aspirations, the awkwardness you face becomes a stepping stone rather than a barrier. If the goal is meaningful enough to you, the discomfort becomes a price you're willing to pay. Consider the story of a woman who wanted to become a public speaker. She had always admired motivational speakers and dreamed of being able to stand on stage and inspire others with her words. But every time she imagined herself speaking in front of a crowd, she felt a wave of awkwardness and fear. The idea of forgetting her words, stumbling over her sentences, or failing to connect with the audience was terrifying. For a long time, she avoided pursuing her goal because the discomfort felt too overwhelming. But as she thought more about her long-term aspirations and why public speaking was important to her, she realized that the discomfort was worth it. She wasn't chasing approval, she wanted to make a real impact, to help people through her experiences and insights. That internal motivation gave her the courage to face the awkwardness of her first few speaking engagements. And as she stepped onto those stages, trembling and unsure, she found that each awkward moment taught her something valuable. With each speech, she became more confident, more comfortable, and more skilled. The discomfort didn't disappear, but it became a sign that she was growing. This idea of choosing a goal worth the discomfort is crucial. When you're pursuing something that aligns with your values, the awkward moments become less daunting because they're in service of something greater. If you're simply chasing external validation or approval, the discomfort can feel like too much to bear. But when you're working towards something that truly matters to you, you can push through those moments with a sense of purpose. The discomfort doesn't go away, but it becomes more manageable because you understand that it's part of the process of achieving something meaningful. And growth isn't just about big leaps, it's about small, consistent steps. One of the most effective ways to build resilience and grow through awkward moments is to take small risks regularly. Just like training a muscle, developing resilience requires practice. The more often you step into discomfort, the easier it becomes to handle. For instance, you might start by taking small social risks, like introducing yourself to someone new at a networking event or asking a question in a meeting where you'd normally stay silent. These moments might feel awkward in the beginning, but over time, they build your confidence and resilience. Each time you push through the discomfort, you reinforce the idea that you can handle it. And as you grow more comfortable with small risks, you'll find yourself ready to take on bigger challenges. Think of someone who starts with the goal of improving their communication skills. Initially, they might focus on small moments, like engaging in more one-on-one conversations with coworkers or contributing a comment in a meeting. Each of these actions might feel awkward at first, but the consistent practice helps them build confidence. As they get better at handling those smaller, awkward moments, they're preparing themselves for bigger steps, like leading a meeting or giving a presentation. Each awkward moment becomes a building block, contributing to long-term growth. The key here is consistency. Personal growth doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of regularly choosing to face discomfort and awkwardness, knowing that each step forward brings you closer to your goals. The more often you take those small risks, the more resilient you become, and the better prepared you are for the larger challenges that life inevitably brings. Thank you for sticking with us until the end. Your likes and subscription are very important to us. Help us keep the Books Project alive and continue delivering high-quality content. Wishing you peace, and see you next time.